Hello everyone, it's James Gone Fishing. In this video we're talking about what trout fishing gear you will need to get started. I will go over the basic gear you will need to tackle your next trout fishing adventure. Okay, let's dive straight in. Now, the first thing you will need is not really a gear item, but it's very important. And without it, you could get into deep water very quickly. This item is a fishing license, and depending on the state, a trout stamp or trout license. Check your local conservation agency about these items before you head to the water. Now, let's talk about the next important piece of equipment you will need. Most trout fishing is done in small or large rivers and streams, as well as lakes and ponds. If you are trout fishing in a river or stream, I would recommend a fly rod setup. A fly rod comes in many different weights and lengths. The weight of a fly rod determines how flexible and strong the rod is. You can get anywhere from a tiny 2-weight fly rod to a giant 10-weight fly rod. For a starter fly rod, I would recommend a 6-weight fly rod that is 8.5 feet to 9 feet in length. I personally use a 6-weight, 8.5 feet rod for all my trout fishing. It is a perfect and trusty size. You will still have lots of play to catch small fish and still have a strong enough backbone to pull in those big rainbows with the 6-weight fly rod. You will also need a leader and tippet for your fly rod setup. Fly rod goes from your fly line, which is the yellow line, to your leader, which is your main thicker line, to the tippet, which is your smaller, stealthier line. Then you tie your fly onto your tippet. You can buy pre-made tapered leaders or make your own leader and tippet. You buy a tapered leader, which I recommend. I would get a 3X or 4X size leader. This will put your line strength to about 4 to 6 pounds, which is plenty for the average trout. Now, if you are fishing in a lake or a pond for trout, I would recommend a spinning rod setup. You usually need to make long casts in these lakes and ponds, so I would recommend a 6 to 6.5 foot rod, anywhere from ultralight to medium light action. For the reel, I would get something with decent cranking power. I personally use a Fluger President SP30X, which is a medium-sized reel. Now, trout fish are very picky and line sensitive, so for line choice on a trout spinning rod, I would use 6-pound monofilament if the water is not clear, and I would use 4-pound monofilament in clear water. I prefer monofilament because the line stretches slightly and won't rip out of the trout's soft mouth as easily as a stiff line like fluorocarbon or braid. The next important item you'll need for trout fishing is a compact bag for keeping all your terminal tackle in. I would get a bag that straps around you and that allows easy access at all times. There are many trout vests you can get on the market. I personally use a large fanny pack that I can strap Rambo style around me, and it stores everything nicely. Items you will need in your bag are extra fly leaders, extra fishing line, strike indicators, flies, lures, trout spinners, small lure boxes. I always keep a sturdy knife and multi-tool in my bag as well. Now, two very helpful and important items you will need for trout fishing and fishing in general are fingernail clippers for cutting lines and hemostats for removing hooks. These items are extremely important. Do not want to be in the stream without them. You should get a bag that can comfortably fit all these items in. Now, that was quite a mouthful, but I will make a list and leave it somewhere in this video. A lot of trout fishermen are strictly catch and release, but trout make a very delicious meal, and they're one of my favorite fish to eat. So, if you're planning on keeping the trout, make sure you bring a stringer and a net, as well as a cooler. Keep the trout cool as you bring them home. Catch and release fishermen may want to harmlessly net a fish to keep it from flopping away to get a nice picture. Make sure your trout net is knotless so you don't damage the trout. Another piece of gear that is often overlooked and extremely important is a good pair of polarized sunglasses. These will cut down the glare and reflection of the sun on the water, making it easy to see in the water and locate those big trout. You go to get a pair of polarized sunglasses, I would recommend you get a brown lens or a blue and green lens. With these color lenses, it will maximize your visibility in the trout waters. Next, you want a nice hat to keep the sun out of your face. Some people like a ball cap and others like a full brim hat, but it's up to you. Now, when trout fishing in a river, you are in the water a majority of the time, Unless it's summertime and the weather's warm, you'll need a good pair of waders to walk through the cold trout waters. I would recommend an insulated pair of waders for cold weather. In the summer months, you can either go swimming trunks or a non-insulated pair of waders. You can get a good solid pair of insulated waders at most outdoor stores around $150 to $300, and you can always spend more if you want. With this gear, I believe as a hardcore fisherman that you will be prepared for the trout waters. But now that you have the gear, you're probably wondering what trout fishing flies and trout fishing lures you need to catch the trout. But that is for another video. I will leave a link in the description or just click somewhere on the screen. Okay, I hope this helped you guys out. Hit the like button, drop a comment, and subscribe to catch some big fish.